Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be focusing our attention on conflict. We're going to be working on how to predict a conflict approaching, how to avoid a conflict if we can, how to solve a conflict when one exists, and how to get help in conflicts where we may be at a disadvantage. First of all, we need to understand a very important point, and that is that conflict oftentimes can result in violence. One way to avoid violence is to predict when it might occur in a conflict. The feeling before most violent situations is anger. It's helpful to be able to recognize angry feelings in yourself and others. Often, aggressiveness, put downs, name calling, all these occur right before something violent. There may be verbal or physical threats. If a weapon is present, you need to get out of the situation immediately and let an authority or an adult know. It's possible to learn how to manage anger in ways that are not violent, even for people who have a past history of violence. It takes work, though. First, we have to learn how to remain calm at all times, no matter what someone says or does. We have to learn how to define the problem, speak it out loud. Let the people in the situation know what the problem is from your standpoint. Maybe they don't even see it that way. Using I statements. Using I statements means you say, I feel a certain emotion when something happens because this is how it affects me. I statements are very important instead of saying, you did this or you did that. Brainstorm solutions. Think instead of react. Think about ways to solve problems instead of just doing what the reaction is or the gut movement. Choose a plan that is a strategy for managing anger and reducing the amount of conflict. Nobody wants to live with tons of conflict. It causes anxiety and health consequences. We need to think about managing it. Now, I will say, building habits when you're young result in good habits when you're older. If we don't figure out how to manage anger when we're young, the consequences later are much more impressive. It's important to remember that violence never makes a conflict better. Violence can result in an injury, a death, legal troubles, suspension or expulsion from school for kids, financial burdens, someone can be sued for doing something violent, and the loss of friendships and relationships, family and otherwise. These are very real consequences that happen every day to people who make a rash decision and let violence occur because they get angry. What are the consequences of people who use violence to solve conflict? It takes a toll on people every day. In America, every 31 minutes, someone dies by homicide. In addition to death and injury, there are emotional scars. The victim experiences fear and anger. Family members are affected. The assailant may be injured, and they may face those legal consequences. Having a record that is a legal record of being charged with and or convicted with crimes has serious consequences when you're trying to get a job, trying to apply to college, or trying to get into the military. So if you say to yourself, I don't want to do that to my friends and family or to me, what do I need to do? Well, you have to figure out now how you're going to react in the future. Play those situations out in your head. That will help you have a bank of experience, even if it's not real experience, that you can lean on to make a better decision when those situations arise. Design nonviolent solutions to conflicts based on the understanding of everyone involved. There are better ways to solve a conflict than by fighting. Mediation is one. That's where you take the help of a nonpartisan person who can walk through the decisions that were made leading up to the conflict, say out loud what they're hearing both individuals say about their feelings and why they feel wronged, and then give some sort of judgment or lead conversation to a judgment that leads to a resolution. Confrontation. This isn't confrontation in terms of doing something mean. This is confrontation in setting a situation that's safe for everyone, allow the other person to save face by providing a way out, stay calm in your discussion, be ready to apologize. Make sure you're ready to accept an apology if a genuine apology is offered. As with mediation, the key is to listen to the other point of view. Be sure your point of view is heard as well, and then manage those points of view so that you can see where something went wrong and address that. Don't forget, use I statements so that we're not offending the individual or putting up unnecessary barriers to their resolving the conflict. Involving a neutral adult may be needed in these situations. It's best to avoid behaviors that escalate the problem. If it starts to escalate, you need to stop the situation and walk away. So many times in conflicting scenarios, the result is an abusive relationship. Lots of times young people don't even know they're in an abusive relationship. This can happen to adults as well who start in loving relationships, but that relationship turns over time in such small measures that they don't notice at the end even the same situation that they started out in. They're completely different. So it's very difficult to get out of abusive relationships. Often a young person will need an adult to help to end a relationship when someone in it has become abusive. Here are some signs that a relationship is abusive. If you're afraid to be yourself, afraid to say what's on your mind, if you feel controlled or manipulated by someone else, you get that feeling in your gut. If the other person is easily angered at things that wouldn't normally anger anyone else, if you feel threatened, if you're isolated from other friends or family, that means people that you have relationships with or had relationships in the past with, you no longer have those relationships either because the person you're associated with has done them wrong or they have pulled all of your attention and all of your time away from those people who mean something to you. If you feel intimidated or disrespected, or if you're physically hurt, these are all signs of an abusive relationship. It's likely that the other person is more interested in controlling the relationship than he or she wants to be in a loving and trusting relationship. Remember, these relationships can start as very loving, trusting relationships, but they can turn, and recognizing those turns is important. So who's there to help? Getting help from an adult is the best step to resolving a relationship that is controlling, abusive, and hurtful. That's not always the answer kids want to hear. It's certainly important that you reach out to your peers, but an adult has the authority many times and the experience to handle these situations by your side or from an authoritative standpoint, whether it's the law enforcement, school administrator, or anyone else. Parents have a child's best interest at heart and are one of the best resources for seeking help. That is, if the parent relationship is not abusive, of course. If the relationship is occurring in the school setting, asking for help from a guidance counselor or teacher is a good idea. But keep in mind, abusive relationships often require disciplinary action. Therefore, a school administrator may be the best resource to go straight to. You should always protect yourself by seeking help from a trustworthy adult if you find yourself in an abusive relationship. Thanks a lot for listening today.